So, an OG Resident Evil producer by the name of Hiroyuki Kobayashi recently announced that he left Capcom. Now, for those of you that don't know who Hiroyuki Kobayashi is, Hiroyuki actually started off working at Capcom with the Resident Evil franchise since the beginning, with the OG Resident Evil 1 working alongside Shinji Mikami, who, for those of you that don't know as well, is the creator of Resident Evil. Now, he worked as a programmer for Resident Evil 1, and then after I think Resident Evil 2, and then after he shifted his role in Capcom as a planner, and he did work on Dino Crisis 2, and then after he did switch his role again to a producer, producing a lot of Capcom games, but then he did end up producing Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 6. But in between his role as a producer with producing other games in Capcom, he also produced the CGI movies, and he did actually recently work on Welcome to Raccoon City as a Capcom consultant, and I think also an executive producer. He is in the credits after you watch that movie, but as well as, he did his latest project was Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. Now, Hiroyuki actually announced his departure on Twitter recently, but he officially left Capcom back in March 22nd of 2022. And he left Capcom to actually work for a Chinese company called NetEase. Now, this is actually very interesting that NetEase is actually acquiring a lot of producers or a lot of game developers. Like last year, they actually acquired Toshihiro Nagoshi. And if you guys don't know, Toshihiro Nagoshi is actually really popular in Japan because he actually is the creator of the Ryuga Gotoku series, or as is known in the West, the Yakuza series. And if you guys don't know, I'm actually a huge fan of the Yakuza series. I started playing that since it came out. I'm a huge fan. But anyways, going back to the topic, now this actually begs the question, how does this affect Resident Evil? What does this mean for the future of the series? And if you guys haven't already, consider subscribing because I post Resident Evil videos every single week. But like I was saying, well, to be honest, personally, I find it a little concerning that Kobayashi has left Capcom, because all of that just means is that Capcom now, there's less people that have been there since the very beginning for Resident Evil. And since Kobayashi played such a huge role in, being a programmer in the first Resident Evil, working alongside Shinji Mikami with a lot of different games, Shinji Mikami's last game for Capcom was actually Resident Evil 4. And as mentioned, he is the creator of Resident Evil. So, Hiroyuki Kobayashi really knows his stuff. If anything, him being an executive producer to the CGI movies, even though you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you guys know my thoughts on the CGI movies. I don't think there were anything special. But one of the things that I did enjoy about the CGI movies is that it wasn't a departure from the games. If anything, it was just a little extra. But speaking about the movies just in general, I don't think there were anything special. I thought they were kind of mid. They were okay. I don't think they were bad. I don't think they were amazing. But regardless, I really like that Hiroyuki Kobayashi kept it grounded, because, even with Resident Evil Infinite Darkness that came out last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year, I noticed that we got a lot of people in the comment section, or my comment section, that were like, I don't know if this CGI movie is going to, basically ruin the story, or they're going to go off. And I was like, no, because Hiroyuki Kobayashi is working on it, and he's been with the series. He's the guy that basically tells the directors, hey, no, this is going a little off. Let's go back. Let's kind of stick to what we're talking about. If you guys know Star Wars, he's basically like the Dave Filoni of Resident Evil. Hiroyuki Kobayashi is kind of like the Dave Filoni, and Shinji Mikami is like George Lucas. But you know what I mean? So it is kind of sad that Hiroyuki Kobayashi is leaving. But will this affect the games? No, I don't think that this will affect the games, mostly because, to be honest, I'm pretty sure Hiroyuki Kobayashi hasn't worked on a Resident Evil game since Resident Evil 6. Now, he was an executive producer for that, but as mentioned, he actually was just focusing more on the animation side, or the CGI side, and as well as being a Capcom consultant for Welcome to Raccoon City. But, that was just him providing, the OG plans for the mansion and stuff for Welcome to Raccoon City. So, do I think that this will affect Resident Evil in the future? No, because, by the way that Resident Evil is headed right now with Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, Resident Resident Evil 7 being such a completely different game compared to the rest of the series, and Resident Evil 8 kind of going back to the series roots, especially with Resident Evil 4. So I don't think his departure will affect the video games in any way. If anything, I think the only thing that it will probably affect is probably maybe like a season 2 of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, because that was rumored to happen. Hiroyuki Kobayashi and the director of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness were in talks of making a season 2. But now that Hiroyuki Kobayashi isn't working, I guess, that's probably not going to end up happening, or the likelihood of that is probably not going to happen. But it could still happen. They could get somebody else to be the executive producer. But, in the long run, do I think that this affects the Resident Evil franchise? No, I don't think. If anything, it's just a shame that we're losing, an OG Resident Evil guy that's been there since the inception. Well, in any case, let me know your thoughts and click this video if you guys want to know what Shinji Mikami's thoughts are on Resident Evil 4 Remake. And also click this video if you guys want to see my reaction to Shinji Mikami, the Resident Evil creator and the Silent Hill creator, have a conversation about how it was like working back in the 90s. Thanks for watching.